28 Years Later was one of the more disappointing films I saw last year. While it wasn't actually a bad film, not by a long shot, it really did feel like an anti-climax and a letdown, considering that we all had eagerly awaited director Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland's return to the genre. While excellent in chunks, on the whole, the movie felt surprisingly overbaked. And while it did okay at the box office, it really didn't leave anyone clamoring for the release of the already shot sequel, The Bone Temple, much less the planned third film. Yet miraculously, 28 years later, The Bone Temple is a much better movie, with director Nia DaCosta bringing a different, perhaps more classical aesthetic to the franchise, emphasizing horror over the last film's focus on what living in the aftermath of the decades-long infection would be like. It's almost as if all that pretentious stuff was gotten out of the way in the last movie, with this one instead focusing on a deeply unsettling series of encounters in the wasteland that is now Britain, a place where the infected are less dangerous than the humans left behind. Once again, Alfie Williams' Spike is our hero, with him having survived his ordeal in the first film, but ending up in a pretty bad position, with him captured by a gang called the Jimmies, who are a Satan-worshipping cult led by a charismatic but evil guy named Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, who's played by Jack O'Connell. Now you see, Jimmy Crystal roams the wasteland with his gang looking for survivors that he could skin alive as an offering to Old Nick, aka Satan, who he believes is his father. It's actually a strikingly similar role to his recent turn in Sinners, with him once again a charismatic but unrepentantly evil force battling for the souls of everyone he encounters. Unnervingly, he's been styled to look like the late Jimmy Savile, a former children's TV host from Britain and friend of the royal family who, after his death, was revealed to have molested somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 children. The Bone Temple is significantly gorier than the last film, with Jimmy leading his evil gang and viciously slaughtering everyone they come across, and his preferred method is being to skin people alive, and oh yes, you see it in the movie. Poor Spike is an unwilling participant, but lucks out when they spy Rafe Fiennes' Kelson from afar and believe he may actually be the devil. Of course, we know, from having seen the last movie, that he's actually a doctor who, despite the fact that he likes to build things with human remains, is actually a pretty nice guy. Fiennes gets to be the lead for most of the movie, with the film focusing a lot on his efforts to help the infected, using the towering alpha he calls Samson, played by Lewis-Parry, as his willing guinea pig after he discovers that shots of morphine actually calm his violent nature, allowing him to piece together crucial information about the infection. If the Jimmy chunk of the movie is unrelentingly grim and violent, the Kelson portion is unexpectedly hopeful and even funny, with it revealed that Kelson has quite a record collection and is particularly fond of Duran Duran and Iron Maiden. It all culminates in an incredible showdown with the Jimmies that doesn't play out at all the way you expect, but is so brilliantly done that when it was over, the audience I saw it with cheered and applauded. It sports a needle drop that any metal fan will go crazy for, and despite being the second film in the trilogy, actually leaves you feeling very satisfied, having given you a full experience. Now, a lot of the credit is due to Nia DaCosta, who made a bit of a misstep a couple years ago with The Marvels, although it's hard to blame her for that movie, but also did a really good remake of Candyman, and did also a solid indie film called Little Woods that really didn't get enough love. She seems to have toned down a lot of the more fanciful and pretentious areas that Boyle got caught up with last time. I think Danny Boyle's a great director, but I also think he went way overboard with certain elements of the movie. For instance, in this one, the Jimmies don't do parkour like they did at the end of the last movie, and the soundtrack is also more conventional, with Hildur Gottnettir taking over for the hip-hop group Young Fathers, who scored the last one. In fact, there's also a reference to the other movies musically that pops up towards the end of the film that was very, very welcome, because it's really the signature of the franchise, and it was strange the last one not having it. Indeed, the first movie in the series is given some excellent callouts that I'm not going to ruin here, but suffice to say, the ending makes one pretty excited for the third film, although part of me also thinks that maybe DaCosta would be better off directing it than Boyle, who really seems less interested in playing in the genre space these days. He's directing Ink now with Jack O'Connell, and is still a terrific director. Just seems like maybe right now, horror isn't really his thing, and maybe 28 years later needs a more conventional hand to bring it to a wrap. Certainly this is going to give Nia DaCosta's career a really big boost, because, I mean, she goes from Hedda to making 28 years later The Bone Temple and doesn't miss a beat. I mean, it sounded like a really thankless gig, considering that Danny Boyle directed the first movie and was expected back to do the third movie. You know, it sounded like it was kind of a direct-for-hire gig, and hey, maybe it was, but no one could deny she really nailed the assignment and did a great job. In fact, I was truly shocked by how much I enjoyed 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, which I found compelling from start to finish. The cast is great, with O'Connell and Fiennes in top form, while Mayor of Kingstown's Emma Laird also pops up in a great role as one of the more evil members of the gang, whereas Willow star Erin Kellyman is one of the more humane members, and similarly effective. Heck, even if you really didn't like the last one, give this a shot. It's such a huge improvement you'll barely believe it, and I give it a very strong 9 out of 10. What a great start to 2026.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.